Baroque art, a time of reform in the art world, and a period of classic liveliness and extravagance, and detail performed with great talent. One of the most famous artists of the Baroque period and of all time is Michelangelo Caravaggio. He was born on the 29th of September in 1571 in Milan. He was an Italian artist who was active in Rome, Naples, Malta, and Sicily. His paintings were extremely realistic and combined observation of the human state with dramatic use of lighting. He helped define key qualities and techniques artists still use today. He always painted from observation and from life. In his early career, he would often paint boys of youth, and in his paintings contained secular themes. His early work was often scenes from Greek and Roman mythology, or people out on the streets of town with many hidden meanings in the paintings. His most famous early work is called Bacchus, whom is the Greek god of wine. The young deity is reclined and relaxed and offering the viewer a glass of wine, which is so realistically painted and contains such fine detail there are ripples in the wine glass as if freshly poured, with flow and movement. The viewer feels as though they could reach out and take the wine glass from Bacchus. There's an abundance of fruit displayed at the bottom of the recliner, some ripe and fresh, some decayed and rotten. This was often a common theme in Baroque art called memento mori, which in Latin means remember your mortality. It was a subtle element in this piece in which the ripe fruit means newness and rebirth, and the rotten fruit represents death and decay. The cycle of life everything on this earth will face. Bacchus is wearing a huge wreath of leaves with grapes around his head to emphasize to the viewer who he is. He is portrayed as a youth with jet black hair and effeminate, soft features, with a mischievous expression on his face. The way Caravaggio paints the angle of his arm masters foreshortening, which is the visual effect of an object or figure in which the figure appears shorter than it actually is because it is angled toward. One of his unusual techniques was he would always paint directly onto the canvas, which was unheard of at the time. Normal technique at the time was sketching out in detail the scene the artist would portray in his painting and then use the paint on top of that sketch. In his 20s, he moved to Rome, and there he had many commissions from churches, and the church wanted Caravaggio first and foremost to paint artwork to adorn the churches. Caravaggio's novelty was radical naturalism that combined close physical observation with a dramatic, even theatrical use of chiaroscuro, which is extreme darks and lights, and a stark contrast in paintings. Imagine a painting with a completely pitch black backdrop, with stark contrast of light and bold shadows on the figure that is the focal point of the piece. It often conveys a mood or emotion to the scene the artist is painting. This technique later became known as tenebrism, which is a shift from light to dark with little or intermediate value. One of his most famous paintings is The Calling of St. Matthew, which is one of his masterpieces. This captures the moment from the Gospel of Matthew, which is in chapter 9, verse 9, when Jesus Christ calls the disciple Matthew to follow him. It shows Christ, hidden, pointing his finger in the direction of Matthew. However, we are not sure which person he is exactly pointing to. A beam of light illuminates the faces of the men at the table who are looking at Christ. This painting was commissioned for and currently still hangs in the Carolina Chapel in Rome. All the success and fame came at a cost for Caravaggio. He was notorious for brawling and had problems with anger and rage. He was jailed several times for different reasons and eventually had a death warrant for his arrest. In 1606, he killed a man in a brawl for unknown reasons and was exiled and fled to Naples. Previously, he would have been able to get away with the consequences from fame and success, but this time there was no exception. He later killed another man in Naples in 1608. At the age of 38, he died under unknown circumstances in Italy. His fame after he died was relived in the 20th century, and his importance increased toward Western art at this time. He has influenced other famous artists such as Peter Paul Rubens, Giuseppe de Ribera, Bernini, and Rembrandt. His style of tenebrism and chiaroscuro was a huge influence for those artists. Paul Villard, a French philosopher, said of Caravaggio, "What begins in the work of Caravaggio is quite simply modern painting." His work will always be celebrated and noticed, and Caravaggio has truly left his mark on the art world for all time.